This is Gideon Malik. Gideon, this is...
Her fiance. Honey, I think we need to go.
Excuse us.
You're welcome for the drink.
Don't worry, I'll pay you back later.
Hey guys, and welcome to the 70s, or actually welcome back to another one of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos and my review of the 5th episode of Season 7, otherwise titled A Trout in the Milk. Now, I'm not really sure where to start here because there's a lot to talk about on this video. I don't even know how long this video is gonna end up being because a ton of Easter eggs on this video, a ton of things going on as well. But okay, first things first, the title of the episode. That refers to changes caused by other minor changes, adding water to milk. It is about Sousa's thoughts on Project Insight happening prior to when it was actually supposed to happen. Like, okay, these are the changes caused by what you did as Team S.H.I.E.L.D. rather than being caused by what the Chronicoms did. Of course, he's wrong there, but that's basically what this is all about. Now, with the 70s, we all expected a new title card, but this week's episode changed the title card into these 70s opening credits. A real good touch there. Love the use of all those scenes from previous seasons too in the process. Daniel Souza throughout the episode is always doubting his survival, wondering if he was always supposed to survive, if he's been always destined to be pulled out of the timeline in the fashion that he was pulled out of the timeline on last week's episode, or if he was supposed to die, and this is a Trout in the milk as well. We've got one of those funny scenes, one of those Coulson Daisy scenes early on in the events of the episode, because once again, Coulson's inner nerd, Coulson's fanboy, was showing on this episode, this time in connection to the Speakeasy and its history with S.H.I.E.L.D. Daisy was also once again the one to comment about it.
Okay, Dad, let's not keep Enoch waiting any longer. He's been chilling for like 4 decades.
But there was a reference here as well, all about Dooley having a reserved booth within the Speakeasy. That's a reference to the character out of Agent Carter, the director or the chief of the SSR New York office. Deke in the tracksuit, very suiting of the times, even though this one's got a S.H.I.E.L.D. logo on it, so he's not going out with that. Not really all that subtle. But when speaking of Deke, you gotta look at that statement, if you and Fitz don't bump lemons. That's a reference to his entire lemon situation with Daisy on Season 5. There was one very hilarious sequence of scenes on that one episode out of Season 5. Now, on the receiving end of that conversation, we've got Jemma. There's this thing in the back of her neck. I'm wondering if it is a trigger of some sort in case she's captured, because she does know a lot more than the rest of the team. Is it the way she gets messages to Fitz, hit it in the back of her neck for that reason? And that brings us to my first theory of the season. It's gonna be all about that piece of technology in the back of her neck, and I think it's basically all about a mind-wiping technology, a memory-wiping technology. That would explain why she's forgetting stuff by the end of the episode, that conversation between her and Enoch. It would also explain why she's the only one allowed to know stuff, partially know things about Fitz, and yet not disclose about it, like a little bit more than the rest of the team. That much is indicated by her conversation with none other than Deke. Now, Mac and Yo-Yo in the Lighthouse, having a moment, places abandoned. Apparently, it should have been so historically, yet it's not really abandoned there. Something is different. Chronicoms did change something. We do realize that later on, not so far later on down the road, because on the next scene in the Speakeasy, it's all revealed, all about Project Insight. But on the next scene as well, May is drunk. That is quite different, quite new, and definitely a new color on her, but it is also very short-lived because it is the result of her interacting with someone who was drunk while she was walking around the bar. Now, this situation with May, though, does happen to sort of complement the situation with Daisy and Simmons getting all high on Fear and Loathing on the planet of Coulson, the Season 6 episode. But hello, old friend from all those recordings back in 2016 in the Lighthouse. General Rick Stoner, or Little Ricky as Souza refers to him, he's been there from the very beginning, from the inception of S.H.I.E.L.D., even though he did enter as some kind of a trainee, but it does complement who he was on the pages of the comics, the first director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He kind of formed S.H.I.E.L.D. with Nick Fury. Another Easter egg to that would be Coulson's statement that followed. He is top brass at S.H.I.E.L.D. That does refer to the same thing on the pages of the comics, which is once again Rick Stoner being the first director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now the surprise here though is he's not exactly the boss, there's someone above him, someone in the chain of command, which is natural, but this time it's Wilfred Malik. He's taken over S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, why destroy it when you can make it into some kind of subsidiary for Hydra? Now this bit here, with a little bit of a spin, a little bit of a twist, and including Project Insight into this entire thing, does feel like it's an Easter egg to Captain America, the Winter Soldier, like the series is taken out of that movie, out of that book, and then they put their very own beautiful twist on it, added from the history of the series as well, like the Malicks. Gonna talk about that in a moment. But okay, Project Insight. This is of course a reference to the project with the same name from Captain America the Winter Soldier, a very obvious reference, a lot of similarities here as well. You've got Project Insight on both the movie and this episode. You've got the project being a tool for Hydra rather than S.H.I.E.L.D., the S.H.I.E.L.D. infiltration by Hydra as well for that purpose. Over there, on the movie, it was Alexander Pierce, and over here, it happens to be Wilfred Malik. Another reference to that is about Coulson's comment, about Hydra being 40 years ahead of schedule. It's also a reference, as I just stated, to the same. The infiltration by one Malik happens to also be a reference to another Malik later on in the events of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from a time perspective, Gideon infiltrating the World Security Council during the events of the Avengers. So it is really a double reference, a reference to a character within Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. from back in Season 3 and a reference to the Avengers movie. But okay, speaking of Gideon, we've got a young Gideon Malik talking to Daisy, hitting on her, another one that Daisy would really want to kill more than she even wanted to kill his father. Gideon's brother though, Nathaniel Malik, that's the kid that we met on the Season 3 episode Paradise Lost. Gideon's dirty secret about sacrificing his brother after his father's death, sending him to Maveth as a sacrifice to Alvius aka Hive, who would in turn kill the kid. That was all revealed on that one episode. But yeah though, a conversation ensues. Souza comes to the rescue, getting Daisy away from Malik. However though, when talking about the drink that he bought her, she does tell him, "Don't worry, I'll pay you later." I believe that's a reference to that moment, post her falling under the control of Hive on Season 3, where she basically executed Hive's orders, killing Gideon Malik.
So it's you. I was curious who Hive would send. I know what you're gonna do.
But a S.H.I.E.L.D. base with S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in blue overalls, blue uniforms, that's an Easter egg / reference to the S.H.I.E.L.D. uniforms on the pages of the comics. We've got Yo-Yo worried about being in that base, the Lighthouse. The funny thing about that is she makes a reference to James Bond movies in general, underground base, full of men in jumpsuits. The funny thing about it is that complements Mac's endless talk during Season 4 about people ever seeing movies where robots take over. I mean, yeah, these two are a match made in heaven. Since we're talking though about things complementing one another, Sousa sorta complements Deke. One came from the future, the other came from the past. Both of them have uncommon expressions, and both of them are oblivious to things they've never seen before. I think that little bit of a compliment was meant to be highlighted as well on this episode. I mean, if you notice, this is the first time in a very long while that Deke has ever mentioned lemons. Lemons is his weird expression, and Sousa's a trout in the milk. That was the expression that multiple members of our agents found a little bit weird. But okay, it's time to end this video. Not really, it's time to actually talk the treasure of Easter eggs on this video. That list that Daisy stumbles upon. That list is a treasure of Easter eggs on this episode. A lot that followed as well has a few Easter eggs, but this was the source of all of it. The project over here is but a front to help Wilfred Malik use information that he's not supposed to have in order to defeat enemies before they even rise. The first name on the list is Conrad Murphy, right out of the comics, father to Sandra Murphy, both of them on the pages of the comics wielders of the Mace of Ashma, with Sandra being a member of one of the squads formed by Nick Fury as well, one of the secret squads. We have the Bruce Banner name and becoming an Avenger reference made by Daisy, but let us not forget as well that he was one of the targets of the 2014 version of the Project 2. Now the thing about the name of an Avenger on that list does indicate that they're not just worried about S.H.I.E.L.D., the Chronicoms, they're also worried about that one major team-up in the future, and that team-up wouldn't be complete without that one green dude. But we've also got that one Victoria Hand name, and that would make perfect sense, but they're trying to stop Hydra on Season 1, and it is also a reference to her being killed at the hands of a Hydra agent, Grant Ward. Now some of the following references I'm pretty sure of, some of them will sound as speculation, which indeed it is, because Ben Harris could be a reference to an ancestor of Agent Harris from Season 2. Agent Harris was one of the men or one of the agents under the command of Robert Gonzalez. Another thing about his name is we do have a Robert Gonzalez on the list, a reference to the character out of Season 2, and also something that could make this add up, with Agent Harris. But there are a bunch of celebrities on the list, 70 celebrities as well, Betty Wright, Margaret Nelson, and David Robinson, which also means that in this universe, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they could have had something to do with either S.H.I.E.L.D. or the government in such a way that it would hinder the Hydra plans or possibly hinder the Chronicom plans as well. But the next one here is Nicole Amador. Nicole Amador is probably an ancestor of Aquila Amador. Aquila Amador is the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent prodigy of Phil Coulson, one that ended up under the control of Hydra the first time we saw her on Season 1, doing all that she did under duress before she'd be saved and freed from their grip by S.H.I.E.L.D. But there is more. Michael Phillips is possibly the character associated with the Punisher on the pages of the comics, or he could even be a descendant of Chester Phillips from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, portrayed by Tommy Lee Jones on Captain America: The First Avenger. The latter here would make more sense, making room for the possibility that he is associated with S.H.I.E.L.D. Now this makes sense when we put it together with the name Jim Moretta, the member of the Howling Commandos, also the man who participated along with Peggy Carter in the capture of Reinhardt. We've seen him on both the first Avenger and on the premiere of the second season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., one of 2 episodes that featured none other than Peggy Carter.
Guten Tag, boys. All right, nice and calm, no sudden moves or we'll tie a blasting cap to your... Hey, Dugan, what's the German word for nuts?
Now I'm almost done with this list here, but we've got the name of Thomas Hull. Could be a reference to Thomas Halloway, aka the Angel, another superhero on the pages of Marvel Comics, but for one reason or the other it could also be a reference to Franklin Hall, the comic book Graviton, and the man absorbed by Gravitonium on Season 1 of the series, like he's an ancestor or something. So yeah, I think all the references are mostly within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, some of them ended up being those celebrities, and finally, some of them are right out of the comics. But there were more names though on that list. We get to know that Peggy Carter and Nick Fury are on that list, a reference to the obvious. Peggy Carter is of special importance when it comes to Agent Souza, standing right there amidst the members of our S.H.I.E.L.D. team. Coulson telling Malicks that he came from processing is a reference to what Deke told the Kree on Season 5 about the agents coming from processing. Premiere of Season 5 trying to conceal their real identities, who they are, and when they came from.
Good. Got what he deserved then, didn't he? Trying to drag these poor transfers up from processing into the wet works just to steal their metrics.
Now, while reviewing the trailer of the season, I did mention this. I expect a lot of Terminator references this season, and we get one on this episode. Terminator Enoch. Come with me if you still want to exist. A very obvious reference to the Arnold Schwarzenegger statement in the Terminator movie. Come with me if you want to live. But yeah though, a few final comments on this episode. The Chronicoms have changed plans and are jumping early, having them all jump to the 4th of July 1976 to launch Project Insight before the agents could interfere or stop it in the early 70s, and while making sure as well during that period to put controls in place to make sure they're unable to do the same in 1976. We've also got Malicks looking at the lighthouse, in River's End, in a moment that reminds us of the card with the lighthouse photo that Fitz left the team in the past as he started his journey towards the future on Rewind. The inner workings of May's current superpower is pretty amazing. I mean, in the end, she did not really knock Rick Stoner out as expected because he was a Chronicom, but rather because she knew he was not in agreement with them. He doubted every word that Coulson said that she did feel. But the Chronicoms though had it all planned. You know, they sent Nathaniel to get whoever's gonna mess with the Lighthouse. They knew he would end up capturing some of them. In this case, it was both Daisy and Sousa. They also took hostages. Mac's parents kept them prisoners in the Lighthouse. The plan over here was twofold. You know, let's launch Project Insight. If it doesn't get launched, if they manage to stop it, they're not gonna stop it while it's still in the Lighthouse. They're gonna have to give up their location. And that's exactly what happened there. But yeah though, next episode, that's still going to be all about the 70s. Because we've got another villain in play, Nathaniel Malicks. And there's an Easter egg to a past season there as well. I mean, Nathaniel Malicks referenced Whitehall. He is doing Whitehall's bidding out of the flashbacks of Season 2. The theory about transferring enhanced abilities surgically, he wants to do to Daisy what Whitehall did to Jiaying, to her mother. We might possibly see Whitehall in the future, we might also see Jiaying in the future. All of this is basically a reference to both of them, you know, all of these events, and also it is history repeating itself, except it's repeating itself ahead of time, ahead of the actual events. But there's also one other reference with the Whitehall talk, you know, I don't want to see him. That's a reference to the exact opposite out of Season 3, the flashbacks that Gideon had, the ones on Paradise Lost, the same episode I mentioned earlier, when their father dies and they end up visiting Whitehall. The very visit that was followed not too long after by Gideon sacrificing his brother and sending him to his death at the hands of Alvius/Hive on Maveth. But that said though, I did think at the beginning of my recording that this video was going to be way longer. I mean, the amount of Easter eggs, the amount of information I wanted to jam in this episode was too much. Glad I managed to do it in 16 to 17 minutes. But that also means that my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Let me know if there are any Easter eggs that I've missed, and let me know what your theories are on how this season is going to end. I might actually post a theory video this week. I'm cooking up a few things in my mind, not sure yet, but I'm gonna try to do that. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it one of those much appreciated likes, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review, and have a great day.